If you've ever been lucky enough to visit Cape Town, you've seen them. These absolutely majestic avenues of giant trees that line the streets. They feel so permanent, right? Like they've just always been there. But there's a hidden story behind that beautiful green canopy. It's a story of collapse, one that has been unfolding for centuries, and we're going to get into it.
And that's really the heart of it. Those iconic trees, the ones that are basically the symbol of suburbs like Newlands or Stellenbosch, well, they're in serious trouble. They are dying, and it's happening right out in the open.
So, that's the big question, isn't it? Why? This isn't just some simple tree disease. No, to really get the answer, we have to become historians, peel back the layers, and go all the way back to the city's colonial roots. We're about to uncover a wild story of ambition, a huge ecological mistake, and a slow, unstoppable invasion.
Okay, so our story starts with a vision. But it wasn't a vision to work with the Cape's unique landscape. Oh no, the idea was to completely change it, to make it look and feel like something else entirely, something familiar, something European. This was the foundation they laid, and you're about to see it was flawed right from the get-go.
It all started out pretty practical, actually. Back in 1652, Jan van Riebeek planted a hedge, not for looks, but as a thorny military-style border. But pretty soon, that focus on function switched to form. Just a couple of decades later, Simon van der Stel shows up and kicks off this massive project to build a new Europe, planting thousands and thousands of English oaks. And get this, by the 1800s, they were so committed to the look that they actually introduced squirrels just to make it feel more like a perfect English garden.
But this whole thing wasn't just about making things look nice. There was a really serious economic reason for it. The Dutch East India Company needed wood, and lots of it, to build and repair its massive fleet of ships. The plan? Plant thousands of English oaks, and basically grow a future navy right there in the Cape.
And here is where that grand plan completely fell apart. The Cape, you see, is not Europe. In that warm African climate, the oaks grew at literally double the speed. You might think, great, more wood faster. But no, that super fast growth meant the wood was porous and soft, completely useless for building ships. The very reason they were planted in the first place was a total failure.
So what happened? They were just left there as pretty ornamental trees. But that rapid growth had a hidden cost. The trees were essentially hollow, rotting away from the inside. They became these magnificent but really fragile giants. They were living on borrowed time from the moment they were planted.
So with this foundation of weak, mismatched trees in place, the stage was set for the next act in this drama, a slow-motion invasion. For more than 100 years, these vulnerable trees would face one foreign pest after another, and each attack was like another deep cut.
The first invader showed up in 1907, probably a stowaway on a trade ship. It was called oak powdery mildew. This fungus just swept across the Cape, covering all the leaves in this thick white dust. People called it the White Death. It didn't kill the trees outright, but it basically smothered them, sucking away their energy and making them even weaker.
Then came the aphids. And they brought a whole different kind of problem. See, these little guys produced this incredibly sticky, sugary goo called honeydew, and it would literally rain down from the trees, covering everything below. This sticky mess was the perfect place for a fungus called black sooty mold to grow, which turned the beautiful green leaves into these blackened, dripping, weeping ghosts.
For decades, the solution was just to spray chemicals and insecticides everywhere, but those were just Band-Aids. This quote really says it all. It wasn't to cure. They were just masking the symptoms of a much bigger, much older problem.
And that brings us right up to today. Those old, weakened trees, already beaten up for a century, were about to face their final and deadliest enemies. These are the modern killers that are delivering the final blow. So around 2016, a new aphid shows up on the scene, the Asian hackberry aphid. This one looks totally different. It's covered in this fluffy white wax, so it actually looks like it's snowing underneath the trees. And here's the really bad part. This pest doesn't just attack the old oaks. It goes after the native white stinkwoods, the very trees that are supposed to be part of the solution.
And this new aphid has a really clever trick up its sleeve. It's teamed up with the local ants. The ants basically farm the aphids, milking them for that sugary honeydew. And in exchange, the ants become their bodyguards, fiercely protecting the aphids from natural predators like lacewings. It's a full-on ant mafia protection rocket playing out in the branches right above us.
And then, in 2019, the final executioner arrived, the polyphagous shothole borer. This tiny beetle is the ultimate killer. It drills into these already stressed-out trees and plants a deadly fungus inside. This fungus then clogs up the tree's internal plumbing, cutting off water and nutrients. It is, for all intents and purposes, a final fatal heart attack.
The result of this whole centuries-long saga is now impossible to ignore. You can walk through the southern suburbs and see it everywhere. Entire canopies are just dead. Gray, skeletal branches reaching for a sky they can't feel anymore. The colonial oak experiment is officially over.
But here's the thing. This story of collapse is also, believe it or not, a story of rebirth. Because out of the ashes of this flawed colonial dream, a new, smarter, and way more resilient vision is finally taking root. The city isn't planting more oaks, of course not. Instead, they're turning to the local champions, the indigenous heavy hitters that are perfectly built for the climate. We're talking about trees like the white stinkwood, the dense and valuable assegai, and the wonderful, shade-giving water pear. This is the new guard of Cape Town's urban forest.
And what's so cool is how elegant the new approach is. To fight that sooty mold problem, there's this simple, chemical-free fix. You just wrap the tree trunks with a sticky barrier. That's it. The ant mafia can't climb past it to protect their aphids. This lets the natural predators, the lacewings, come back and do what they do best. The ecosystem just fixes itself. How smart is that?
So when you boil it all down, the takeaway is this. The collapse of that colonial canopy, as sad as it looks, has actually opened the door for something so much better. It's a move away from a tired old European copy and a move toward an authentic, resilient, and truly local landscape. It's an incredible thought, really. After centuries of being forced to look like somewhere else, Cape Town's urban forest is finally being allowed to look like the Cape.